Hi everybody. In this second video on Aristotle, I'm simply going to address one idea from Aristotle, one that it's for some reason that I will explain in this video controversial. Okay. Well, we'll understand the controversy behind it. And the idea is that of the final cause, the idea of telos or teleology. Okay, this is an important word in philosophy, friends, that you have to remember. Telos means end, purpose, or goal. And teleology is sort of like the idea of telos, the concept of telos. I would say that's maybe the difference between telos and teleology. I'm pretty sure that's the difference between those two words. So that telos again means end, goal, purpose. So that's what I want to discuss briefly in this video. So we need to start with the idea of the four causes, right? Which is one of the most, how can I say, representative ideas of Aristotle. Like if Aristotle is famous for, well, Aristotle is famous for so many ideas, but this is one of the key ideas that very distinguishing about his philosophy. And also an idea that lets you see and lets you appreciate, I hope, the depth and the magnitude, I would even say, of Aristotle's mind. I mean, this man was unbelievable. He was brilliant in his way of analyzing and trying to understand everything, the way we think. I mean, think about it. The four causes are really four ways to answer the question, the why question. And prior to Aristotle, nobody like paid that much attention to language and the way we think about the why, right? The why question and how to answer the why question. Well, Aristotle came up with this distinction, these four ways of answering a why question, pointing to the cause of something, right? And this is in your textbook. The first one we read in the textbook is the material cause, right? That's the first cause, the first B cause, which is of all the causes, the other causes is probably the one that it's most difficult to relate to a why question. Because okay, the material cause points to the matter, to the material with which something is made or made up. So for example, if you're looking at a statue, okay, and somebody asks, why is that a statue? Right? Or what makes that a statue? Um, well, if you're going to say, if you're going to provide the material cause, you would say, well, it's because it's made of stone or clay or some rock or some material with which we typically make statues of bronze, right? So you would point to the stuff the statue normally statues are made of, which again, it's probably the of all the causes, it's probably the one that we find less I don't know, alignment with a why question. We don't normally think of the material, the matter with which something is made when answering a why question. Why is that a statue? But anyways, Aristotle says, okay, this is the first cause, right? The material cause. If you're looking at a whatever a notebook and you ask why is that a notebook, and maybe somebody would say, right? Maybe somebody would reply with a material cause. Well, because it's made of paper. Okay, I guess it's just one way of answering the why question. Um, and the second cause, the second because, let's say, is the formal cause. And the formal cause, as the word say it, right, it has to do with the form, the shape. Now, this is sometimes can be a little confusing when trying to understand or study Aristotle's philosophy, how he uses the word form, which in ancient Greek is eidos, interchangeably. Like there's two different ideas behind form. And one is form meaning idea or essence. That's the way in which Plato uses the word form. Remember in our video on Plato, it's confusing. I mean, to me at least, it was confusing because to me, form, okay, means something different, just shape. That's what comes to my mind. But then for Aristotle and for Plato, right, it also means idea, the essence, the main idea of something. So, anyways, but also for the Greeks, it means idea and it means shape. Okay, same word, eidos. So the formal cause, it points to the shape. To continue with our examples, why, if somebody asks, why is that a statue? You know, the answer, the formal answer to the question would be, well, because it's look at the shape, right? It's the typical shape of a statue. It's the figure of somebody. And you know, this is kind of commonsensical, don't you think? Like you can sort of tell when something is a statue simply by looking at the shape, at the figure that the statue represents, correct? So, well, see that's another way of answering the why question. Why is that a statue? Because of its shape. That's the formal cause. And then there's the efficient cause, which is really interesting. The efficient cause points to the the origin, to the creator, let's say, to the reason why there is that statue over there. Okay, so for example, you're looking at a statue, you ask, why is that a statue? Somebody can answer, oh, because it was made by this famous sculptor, this famous artist, like Leonardo da Vinci or something. And so that's the answer to the why question, because it was made by an artist. That's why it's a statue. Why is that a chair? If you're looking at a chair, and again, it's easy to identify a chair by looking at the shape of the chair, right? I mean, chairs have so many different designs, right? But you look at one chair, by looking at it, by identifying the form, you know it's a chair. So I would say in that regard that the formal cause is probably the most appropriate way of answering the why question. Why is that a chair? Well, look at its shape, right? It has four legs and so on. But the efficient cause, if you're answering with that cause, you would say, well, it's a chair because it was made in this, it's from this furniture store. It was made by a carpenter or something. You're pointing to why it's there, right? Why it came into being. So that's the efficient cause. And finally, the final cause, the telos cause, is the points to the purpose, to the goal, to the end, right? Why is that a chair? Because you can sit on it. So you point to the purpose. That's the purpose of a chair, right? So people can sit on them and they can, you know, take a break, rest, relax, or whatever. And if you point to other objects, right? Why is that a car? Well, because you can use it to go to work, for example. Why is that a vehicle? Because you use it to go from point A to point B and so on. You point to the purpose, to the goal, right? And these things have goals, right? A chair has a goal, a car has a goal, and so many things. Probably, I don't know, maybe everything has a purpose, a goal. So anyways, those are the four ways, according to Aristotle, we can answer a why question. Quite brilliant, don't you think? I mean, when I never thought about that before till I read Aristotle. But anyways, brilliant. Four causes: the material, the formal, the efficient, and the final cause. Now, the textbook says that of all the causes, the final cause is the most controversial. And it's funny when I read that in the textbook, right? Because I don't understand and at the same time, I understand why it's controversial. I think it shouldn't be controversial. That's, I guess, my take on it. But where's the controversy? The controversy comes from the fact that Aristotle saw purpose in nature, in everything. He saw telos, right? He saw that things have a particular goal, right, to accomplish. Do you remember in the previous video we talked about human development, right, and the idea of entelechy, remember, and how there's two patterns of development for human beings. We develop physically in our form, right, in our matter, in our body, always develops or should develop in the same way, the same direction. I said that probably roughly around 25, a person is fully developed physically speaking, and at its prime, maybe. So when it comes to physical development, that's it. We're not going to be in better shape. Of course, there are other factors involved, lifestyle and exercise and that sort of thing. You can be in much better shape at 40 compared to somebody who's 25 and is a blob, right? But you see what I'm saying. Supposedly, your brain is fully developed when you're 25 and so on. So, but then there's the other development, the psychological development. That's the form, right? That's our essence, Aristotle would say. Our essence, our eidos, develops in a different way, and it has a particular also way of developing, and has a goal. Has a goal. Both developments, physical development has a goal that we can be, physically speaking, we can do all that we can do with our bodies, right? We can jump, we can grab things, we can run, and that is the goal, that is the telos of our physical development. Well, for Aristotle, the telos of our psychological development, the development of our eidos, our essence, our form, is that we get to live great lives, that we become virtuous, so we become good people. Right? That would be the goal. Why? Aristotle would say, well, because we all want to be happy, right? Every single one of us want to be happy. That's what we want out of life, to be happy, to enjoy our lives the best way we can, and to the full of our capabilities. So, well, Aristotle would say, well, since we all want to be happy, well, that's the path to happiness, virtue. So we must practice virtue. We must practice morality. We need to be good, moral, decent people. Um, which I think it's a good point. I mean, if you think about it, and I had this thought like quite recently in class. I remember asking my students, it's so true that people who are super happy, that people we know, maybe not many people that we know that they're super happy, but you know what I'm saying, people who have some sort of inner peace, and they, I don't know, they have something about them, some joy that is contagious, and you makes you want to hang out with these people. They're so wise. These people, friends, happy people, um, they're they're happy, they're friendly, right? They're good people, they're decent people. You can even say they're virtuous people, because again, you want to sort of be like them, right? So, but think about people who are mean and nasty, or people who don't care at all about being good, people who are selfish, and okay, those people, and there's a lot of those, unfortunately. Think about it. They don't look happy. I mean, somebody watching might think, "Oh, well, but that's subjective. Maybe they're happy." Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, they're super happy. Being mean, being rude, and not having really great friends. Yeah, they're probably super happy. I doubt it. It's kind of evident, friends. These things are evident. Mean people, they're not happy, and people who are happy are good people, are decent people. So Aristotle would say he was correct. Yes, if we want to be happy, that's our goal in life. That's our telos, okay? Then we have to be good people. You see, it's so interesting because today, right, there's so much nihilism going on, and people asking themselves, what's the point of life? There's no point in life. We are born and we die, and there's no point. Life is meaningless. There's just it's just a struggle. Well, Aristotle would say, no, you're wrong. It might seem that way to you, uh, but having those thoughts and saying those things just sort of shows that you're not very happy right now with life, right? Obviously, you wouldn't be saying those things. So that's the problem. The problem is that you probably are not a nice person because you don't see the point, right? I'm arguing like Aristotle would. So Aristotle would say, well, you can be in a much better place, trust me, because we are meant, we were created to be happy. Right? That's what our essence, our ethos, our form yearns. This we want to live great life. We want to be happy. So, well, problem is that you're not a good person. You're not like a friendly person. You're not compassionate, and you don't care about the well-being of, your fellow whatever citizens and friends and so on. So, because you don't care about any of that, then you're in that nihilistic place. Makes sense to me, friends. Makes sense to me. So that is and so there's an end in Aristotle. He saw everything has an end. Um, Human physical development. Remember in the previous video I mentioned the example of frogs, which is in the textbook. They have a goal, a telos. There's a telos in their development. They are destined, they are created to be a type of being that jumps and catches flies and does all these things. So that's how they must develop based on their essence, their nature. Okay, I think I made my point. So, but I have not said why that is controversial. Again, I don't think it's unreasonable. I actually think it's commonsensical and even obvious to see purpose behind things, to see the goal of things. I mean, everything we do, I would say we do for a reason. That's the end. That's the telos, the purpose. That's how we think. That's how we live. And where's the controversy? Well, the controversy is that back in the day, in antiquity, and for many centuries, the world operated under, I would say, one assumption. Okay, one assumption. And the assumption was that there is a God, there is a creator. The assumption for centuries was that we're here for a reason, for a purpose, that the world is not just an accident, that we human beings are not here by accident. We were put here by somebody, that's the efficient cause, right? And we were put here on this planet for a reason, that's the final cause. The reason, again, for Aristotle is that we be happy being virtuous individuals. So there is, and it's obvious, because for Aristotle, he would see purpose in everything. I mean, think about your physiology, for example. The purpose of your eyes is to see. That's the goal, right? I mean, this is not controversial, right? The purpose of your ears is to hear. The purpose of your fingers is to grab things. The purpose of your legs is to walk. Um, so I remember, though, a few years ago, my niece, my brother's daughter, told my mom something really interesting, really teleological. My mom does not do a whole lot of exercise. She just likes to watch television sitting on the couch. That's it. And of course, I mean, she is 83 years old now, so she has to exercise for her own good. So, but one day she was just spending, I don't know how many hours watching TV, and my niece came up to her and said, Grandma, you should walk more. And my mom says, well, yeah, why? Because your legs were made for walking. And I thought, that's pretty, that's very philosophical. That's Aristotle's thinking. That is the final cause of your legs. That's the purpose of your legs. It's for you to walk. If you're not walking, then you're not fulfilling that goal, that natural purpose, telos. And therefore, there will be consequences, right? So it's very important. It's wise to recognize the telos, the natural goal of things, and to abide by those things. The natural purpose of my lungs is to take in oxygen. That is the goal of my lungs. Okay, well, that means that if I smoke and I'm inhaling something that is not oxygen, I'm going to hurt myself, right? I'm going to hurt my lungs and maybe I'll develop cancer, right? We know these things. So, but these are teleological ways of thinking, right? We are making this judgment based on the telos, the natural goal of all these things, our organs and our legs and so on. Nothing controversial, right? But again, the controversy comes because for the ancients, for many years, the telos is part of nature. It's part of who we are. We were put here on this planet for a reason. We were created. And this was an assumption that was evident for everybody. Friends, Thomas Jefferson, he wrote in the Declaration of Independence, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that we're all created equal, and we are endowed by our Creator, capital C, with three unalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Self-evident. It's right? Of course there is a God. Of course we were created by God. Of course, so obvious, again, for Jefferson and for centuries, for many people, for most people, people in antiquity, it was evident, non-controversial. So, and with this fundamental assumption that there is a God, we build our civilization, Western civilization. Our institutions, universities, states, schools, everything, our system of justice was modeled after this fundamental assumption, fundamental idea that there is a God. Not too long ago in court, people, when offering testimony in a court of law, they had to put their right hands on a Bible. Okay, because again, I mean, you might lie here to everybody. You can't lie to God. You cannot hide from God. God knows whether you're telling the truth or not. And if you're not telling the truth, you're gonna pay, right? God is gonna deal with you. That was part of our system of justice, the belief in God. What happens is that today we are operating under a different assumption, fundamental assumption, and that is that there is no God. Okay. So now, if you want to be a credible scientist, intellectual, you can't be a religious person. You cannot believe in God, higher power. You can't. So they're not going to take you seriously, right? So I think it's true. I think it's true. So and because now, right, it's not evident to everybody. Most people probably would say that it's not evident, at least most intellectuals, right, for sure. They would say, no, it's evident there is no God. I don't see God. Where's God? I cannot see him. I cannot touch him. God is just an idea, right? People made up. And right? So for today, it's not evident. No, what's evident is that there is no God. Everything, the universe has no purpose. Now, see how the fundamental idea changes everything, changes all, even our institutions, the way we understand justice, we understand science. It's totally different, totally, absolutely different when the assumption is that there is no God. So you're going to come up with, in science, right, theories like the Big Bang. We're not here because God created us, created the planet, the stars, like the Bible says, or other religious texts. This was just an accident. The Big Bang, right? That's the beginning of everything. Then in the universe, things little by little over, well, and through thousands of years, the debris in the universe after the Big Bang and started organizing itself, and then the stars of our stars, were organized and came to being and so on, and then we had a planet, and then conditions in our planet were perfect for life to appear, and life appeared just accidentally. There's no efficient cause behind it. There's nothing pulling the strings. There's no divine being creating or doing anything, right? Everything just happened accidentally. So that's right. The theory of the Big Bang and the theory of evolution. Everything was just accidental, natural selection. There's no intelligence behind that. There's no purpose. There's no creator, divine designer pulling strings and influencing the environment so things, develop in a particular direction with a particular telos. No, none of that. So that's our science today, right? Well, of course, that's science because our fundamental assumption today is that there's no God because we know better now, right? We know better. We're smarter, we're more modern, we have all this technology and this knowledge. And what does Aristotle know, right? I mean, he lived in antiquity, right? That's how many people think today, friends, and it's so unfortunate because not because it's personal to me in the sense that because I believe in God or anything. No, it's just it's it's unfortunate because it's just an assumption. It's an assumption. Nobody has proven that there's no God. Nobody has proven conclusively that there is a God. So all we have is to rely on our reason, and that's what Aristotle was doing. He was simply looking at things, and it was obvious to him that things have that telos. I gave you so many examples, right? Fingers, eyes, lungs. And it's not crazy to think there's telos in the nature. Um, and because there's telos, there's that final cause. Well, that means that there is intelligence and purpose. Okay, now, Mr. Molina, you're going from telos to goal and to intelligence. But of course, this is again how we think. An example that I give my students. I give my students in class, in my philosophical issues class, when we're discussing this idea of telos and the efficient cause, the final cause. I tell them, look, I said, take a look at your classroom and take a look at the chairs and tables in your classroom and tell me what you see. That's my question. Tell me what you see. So students say, well, I see rows, okay, rows of tables and chairs, right? And what else do you see? Well, that the chairs are all chairs are placed behind the table. Okay, what else do you see? Um, well, chairs are all facing the same direction. They're facing to the front of the classroom, to the screen, the board, projector, whatever. They're all okay. And then I start asking the why question. Why? Why do you think the tables and chairs are set up this way in rows or columns? Why there's space between each row? And you know what they would say? The obvious, right? Oh, the space between the rows is to allow people to move back and forth, right? Between rows and get to their chair, and then it makes it easier for people to access their chair and leave their chairs and whatever. Okay, so you see the purpose. What's the purpose behind the chairs all facing the screen? Why? Oh, well, Mr. Lin, it's obvious. That's for students to look at the instructor, right? Look at the material on the board and on the screen. Okay, so you see the purpose. You see the final cause in the way tables and chairs are arranged in our classroom. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we see everything was set up this way for a reason for telos. All right, so my next question is, was that an accident? The, the tables and chairs set up in a room, did that happen just accidentally? Do you think somebody just opened the door once and started throwing tables and chairs inside the room and they accidentally fell into this neat or setup of tables and chairs? Or, or do you think somebody did it? Somebody, maybe a person or two persons. What do you think is more likely that the answer to the question, to the why question? And so I guess those are right. One is the formal question that I ask for. No, the one is the yes, the final question. What's the purpose? They recognize the purpose, and then I ask sort of the efficient cause question, right? Who did it? Who was responsible for this order? The order of the tables and chairs. Well, maybe the janitors of the building or whatever. Yeah. So I said to them, it was not accidental. No, that's absurd. I mean, somebody did it. An intelligent person did it. At least one intelligent person. Intelligent enough to know, okay, tables need to be and chairs need to be arranged in rows, and chairs need to be facing the front of the classroom, the board, um, because they knew, okay, that's how students are looking at the instructor and paying attention. So everything, yeah, there's intelligence, intelligent people acknowledging those two things, right? Um, the efficient cause, why, the why of the order, and then the final cause. Okay, then what was the purpose, the goal? So maybe I'm taking too long to explain something way too obvious to you. I'm sorry. This is how my brain works. I'm a slow thinker. So, but I want to make it evident, super evident to everybody watching, um, that this is how we think. So it's crazy actually to think that the tables and chair arrangement was just accidental. Well, Aristotle would say the same thing about the Big Bang and the theory of evolution. He would say the exact same thing. He would say that's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. An explosion does not create order, right? The Big Bang. It does not. Like when in your experience in your life you have blown something up, or you have seen something being blown up, and all the debris coming together to form something like a statue or something more complicated like a desk or a computer. Nothing. No, this all you see is debris going everywhere. You don't see nothing becoming organized and coming into being. Nothing out of an explosion. So, oh well, Aristotle, you don't understand the laws of physics. What about life? Life happened, just happened accidentally. It's just accidentally happened. Life, there's no life. We went from a world, a planet with no life to a planet with life. How did that happen? Aristotle would ask. Oh, it just happened. Scientists to this day, they don't know. They don't know. They just say it. Well, it just happened. Conditions on the planet were perfect for life to happen. Okay, well, run the experiment. Run the experiment. If you're a scientist, you believe this, try to run it. Try to put non-living elements. We know everything now about the whole chemistry and physics of life. Well, take all the elements necessary for life, they're part of life, and make something living out of it. Take non-living materials to make a living being. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now. If you can do that, you will be the next Nobel Prize winner because that will be a remarkable achievement. To this day, it has proven to be impossible. Impossible. It's impossible. All scientists can do is to make a copy of a living being. They can take a cell and make another cell out of the first cell. So now they have two cells. Yeah, but you need to start with a living being, with a cell. But you cannot make a living being out of nothing. I'm sorry, out of non-living materials. You can't. It's impossible, at least today. I'm not against research for, finding out if if there's a possible way, I'm not against that. I'm totally not against it. But what I'm saying is what we do know, what we all know. You can't make life out of non-living elements. You can't. To this day, it's impossible. So see, Aristotle would say, it just things don't happen like that. Life does not just happen out of nowhere. We need we need several things. We need a material cause, right? We need the elements, the right elements. We need a formal cause. We need a particular shape, maybe for life. Well, I don't know, maybe not. We need an efficient cause for sure. We need somebody, an entity, divine, supernatural being, whatever, making it happen. That's the efficient cause. And if there is an efficient cause, there must be a final cause. There must be a purpose, right? There must be a purpose. So everything, everything is made for a reason. Everything. So here's another argument, right? Think about a car. The radiator in a car has a particular telos, particular goal, keep the engine cool. And then the battery has a particular telos, goal. What's the goal of the battery? Power up the car. And then the wheels have a purpose. And then everything, every single thing in your car, every single part has a purpose, the telos. Does the whole car have a telos, a purpose? We talked about it already, of course, to take us to places, right? That's the telos, that's the goal. Okay, and we know the efficient cause, right? Who created the car? You can think of Toyota and Ford and things like that, right? You can identify a car by looking at the shape, the formal cause, right, and then the material cause, and so on. So, point is, if the whole car has a purpose, now consider yourself. Your fingers have a purpose. Your eyes have a purpose, a natural telos, lungs, ears, legs. Don't you think, is it obvious to assume, and isn't it logical to draw the conclusion that the whole of me must also have a purpose? I'm here for a reason. You are here for a reason. The question is, what is the reason? What is the final cause? What is the telos? Again, Aristotle would say, you're here to be a virtuous person because that's how you attain happiness. And that's, in essence, what all of us want. So, how about that idea, friends? Now, to finish up, for centuries, right? It was obvious, that was the fundamental assumption. It was obvious that we're here for a reason. We were created by some supernatural being. Now, the fundamental assumption is no, there's no God. Tell me what makes more sense to you. I do have to give credit in closing to Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, who was probably the first intellectual, the first philosopher to realize the change in the fundamental assumptions. And that relates to his famous claim that God is dead. Okay, some of you know that. I'm sure you know that statement. He made that statement. God is dead. And he did not say it as something to be proud of and to celebrate, but he said it as something very, very troublesome, something very worrying, because that means that God is dead because he noticed that we were not people in science, intellectual. All of a sudden, they started relying more on science than on religion. And Nietzsche saw it coming. He said, well, there's something going on here. There's an important shift. People are not noticing. Our God is dead. Our fundamental assumption that we operated under for centuries, with which we build this civilization, our institutions, our nation. Remember again, Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We're created, and so on. Well, none of that is true now. God is dead. Fundamental assumption today is there is no God. What sort of world are we going to build with this fundamental assumption, the new fundamental assumption. Well, we sort of have an idea now, right? But what is to come, we'll see. Um, I'm always optimistic, and I think I'm thankful for the internet, among other things, and YouTube, right, for being incredible means of spreading knowledge. Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation too, but there's a lot of good information, a lot of knowledge, and I'm doing my part. Videos like this one, at least I think it can make a difference. Can at least make people think. Yeah, oh, that's true. Yeah, in the past, God was not an issue. That was not a problem believing in God. Now there is. It is an issue. Why? Yeah, maybe it's true. The whole thing about God being dead and we operating under an assumption. It's just an assumption. What makes more sense? A random, chaotic world where there's no order, there's no intelligence behind, or a world of order and intelligence? Yes, if we go for the second option, the ancient option, the God option, yeah, we will have to deal with different issues for sure, for sure. But anyways, that's where we are, friends. So for the man on the screen, unbelievable philosopher, incredible mind. He saw it. He was obvious to him. There is purpose in nature. We're here for a reason. Final cause. And yeah. So that obviously that idea permeates most of Aristotle's philosophy, his metaphysics, and so on. So that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.